Thank you all for coming back. Today's town meeting is going to consist of two parts. In the first, we will introduce the next phase of our interim work and the folks that are going to lead us in that work. In the second part of the meeting, we will be discussing the board's plan for ministerial leadership over the next year or two. We hope to cover all of this material efficiently and concisely and allow plenty of time for questions. We do have a memorial service at 2 p.m., so I expect that we'd be looking at a hard stop around 1, but I don't really think that that's going to be a problem. Okay, so first up, we are about to enter into a really exciting time in our congregational life and in our interim work, where we begin to explore our identity as a congregation. You know, over the course of 24 years, the lines of demarcation can get blurred somewhat. It can be hard to figure out where Carolyn stopped and where All Souls started, right? So that's what this work is about. Defining our identity as a congregation, separate from Carolyn, separate from Reverend Vertus, separate from really any minister at all. It's a deeply introspective dive into who we want to be among ourselves and how we want to show up outside of our doors. So we have assembled an amazing team to shepherd us through this process. I'd like to introduce you to them now. They have dubbed themselves the Dreaming Forward team. And as I call your name, I'd ask you to please come up front. So leading the Dreaming Forward team is Sally McGee. Also Kathy Smith Carolyn. I saw Kathy, yep. George Dowker. Jessica Dickens. Reverend Vertus. And Todd Berry. What an amazing group, huh? Woo! I'm so glad they all said yes. And they're already doing amazing work together. They cut me in for all their meeting minutes and plans and stuff, and they're already doing really amazing work together. So this is going to be a really fun process, and I'm really thrilled to have them all on board. So now I'd like to ask Sally to come forward and provide us with a few more details about this work and what to expect going forward. Sally?
Thanks, Eileen. So if we could, Jesse, you could go back to the very beginning. Yeah. So before we start, I just want to invite everyone into a moment of a centering prayer. Spirit of life, Spirit of love, thank you for this complex and loving community. Thank you for the souls who have been here for decades and for the souls who just found their way here last week. Thank you for all of the different perspectives, ideas, hopes, and dreams that this community holds. Help us to be open to possibility. With gratitude for the mystery, blessed be and amen. Thank you. So the Dreaming Forward team. Basically what we're doing kind of in one sentence is we all have ideas about who we were, we have ideas about who we are, and what we need to think about and discuss and coalesce around is who we want to be. Dreaming forward. So that's kind of what we're doing in a nutshell. So Eileen just introduced the team. Just so you can see the names again, these are the folks who we've already been working together for about a month, kind of figuring out how we're going to answer that question of who we will be in Dreaming Forward. Next slide. So before we started our work, I wanted to make sure that everybody was aware that we made a commitment as a group, as a team, to ourselves. We have a team covenant, and these are kind of the essential elements of that covenant. And this is for the team that is serving the congregation. Faithful listening, integrity and trust, non-attachment to outcomes of the process, collaboration and respect, and inclusion and equity. So that's what this team is based on. Next slide. Thanks, Jesse. So our charter and areas of exploration are really guided by the board. They gave us this starting point. So the charter for the Dreaming Forward team is to gather and then reflect community input on congregational life. So collect from the congregation around various topics, and then synthesize and what we hear, what themes we hear, what insights we gain, that will then inform the next steps for future ministry, broadly speaking, and potential ministerial search processes. The areas that the board worked through and asked us to focus on are, and I'll say these are potential areas of exploration. You'll see why I say potential in a minute here. But the potential areas of exploration are worship experience. So what do we treasure about our current worship experience? What would we like to change? What would an ideal worship experience be like? So feedback from this element that will come from all of you will help inform the worship team and ministers, current and future, understand what we're looking for on Sunday mornings. The second is faith formation. So the question is, what do we appreciate most about our current programs, and what might we like to see in the future? And the feedback from this element will inform the director of faith formation, Perry Montrose, and the whole faith formation team to meet the spiritual development needs of the congregation, children and adults alike. The third is social justice outreach and community engagement. So this is, what are our priorities in serving the community beyond our walls? And what level of outreach can we sustain? And are there specific communities that we are drawn to serve? Feedback from this element will help us focus and perhaps energize community engagement. And we look forward to an honest discussion about bandwidth and commitment to this work. Last is communication. So how effective are our current modes of communication? Do people know what's going on at All Souls? Do you feel tuned in? What kind of changes would we like to see? And what do members think about establishing a congregational covenant to help guide how we communicate and how we interact with each other? So feedback from this element might result in proposed changes to something as simple as the e-blast format, the website, social media, or other forms of communication. Yeah, so those are the four that we have. The next slide. Thanks. So how we've been talking about how to collect information from the congregation. So we want to reach out in all different ways so people can have an opportunity to provide input in whatever way works for them. So we're going to have what we're calling a grounding survey. It's really short, it'll take you 2 minutes to fill out. It opens today. You'll be able to do it at the end of this presentation. So the grounding survey is really to just make sure that what I just said and what this group has been talking about and the way the board directed us is pretty much the right direction, that we're aiming pretty much in the right direction. So grounding and making sure that, what the Dreaming Forward team and the board has been thinking about for next steps is on track. So getting feedback on that. Then then we're going to start diving deeper. That we'll have a small group kind of focused discussions probably around different topic areas. So we're not going to try to cover it all in one group, but you can choose which areas are most important to you that you feel like you have feedback that you can give. So those will be small groups in person, here, online, and I don't know, I'm pausing just because maybe, I don't know, there'll be other places, but that's what we're thinking so far. We'll also, members of the team who you just met will be available if people would prefer to have a one-on-one discussion rather than a group discussion. We'll be available to talk with you one-on-one, also in person or online. And then I know everybody, kind of maybe rolls their eyes a little bit at a survey, but oh my gosh, so valuable. So when the time comes, there's going to be a more detailed survey that everyone is invited to provide feedback in that way as well. Some people might prefer to submit their ideas in writing. Please do. You'll have another opportunity in addition to this very short survey that you'll see later today. To provide detailed feedback. And there's no such thing, or we welcome double dipping, triple dipping, whatever. However many times you want to provide feedback in different ways, please do. So that's how the feedback will be collected. Okay, next slide. So this is our draft timeline. And so you can see that we aim to be done with this work by late August. So today, we're starting it, opening the grounding survey, which will be open for a month. And then in April and May, dates still TBD, we'll be holding those listening sessions and opportunities for more detailed input. That's April and May. We'll start looking at the results in late May. We'll share a progress report at the annual meeting at the end of May. And then over the summer, we'll be figuring out what was provided, and then share a final report with the board and the congregation, with the board at their end of summer retreat, and with the congregation late August or so. So that's the timeline. Next slide. Okay, so this grounding survey. So again, we want to make sure that we are generally aiming in the right direction before we really start. I'm glad to see a few people have their phones out. You can go ahead and just capture that QR code and take the survey. It's 5 questions. This is to make sure that we are aiming in the right direction. So this will be open for I hope it works. I hope it's working. Yes, excellent. So I shouldn't have had any doubt because Rebecca Grabner helped us put it together. Yes, yeah. So that code it'll be in the e-blast. It'll be up on notices around All Souls here for the next month. To give your input. So that is it. That's what we're going to do. We're like wide open and ready and excited to hear what people have to say. So, Eileen?
Any questions?
Sure. Yeah, Paul.
In the timeline, I didn't notice the full survey listed.
Yeah, okay, so Paul asked when the full survey is going to be, what is going to take place. So that's going to be that's going to be April, May. So that's going to be something that, I don't know, we haven't talked about this, but I would anticipate would be open for a good period of time. And it's going to be kind of concurrent with the listening sessions and one-on-ones. Yeah. Liz?
I know it's hard to believe, but there are people who don't have cell phones. Is this somewhere going to have a link or a paper copy?
Yeah, we'll have paper copies next week for this, and we'll have paper versions of the long survey available for people as well. Yeah, yeah, okay. Any other questions? Okay. Pause for a minute. All right, great. Oh, wait. Thank you. Oh, yeah, sure. Okay.
All right, so it's going to be exciting to see what comes of that. Thanks, Sally. So as part of Sally's work with the Dreaming Forward team, she met with members of the First Church in Salem, Mass., who have gone through a similar transition after a 23-year ministry. The UUA suggested we reach out to them for guidance, and one of the big takeaways from that conversation was the need for time. They referenced the grieving process, which we've referred to before, you know, the grieving the loss of Carolyn. She's not dead, but, and the importance of recognizing all of the firsts. The first water communion without Carolyn, the first Christmas Eve service, the first memorial service, the first coming of age service. All of this just takes time. It almost doesn't matter what you do at the time. We're going to make good use of it, but it almost doesn't matter what you do at the time. You just need that to create that space, right? That buffer between what was and what will be, right? Another thing that takes time is the UUA settled minister search process. It's a lengthy one. All told, it's about 15 to 16 months from when you start forming the search team until you call a minister. It begins in the spring of the year prior to the call. So for example, if we wanted to get into the ministerial search process for a July of 27 call, which we're not looking to do, but if we were going to do that, we would need to be forming a search team this spring. Okay, also important to note is that we cannot enter the UUA search process unless and until we have dismissed Reverend Vertus as a candidate. As a member of our staff, he's considered an internal candidate, and all internal candidates have to be released from consideration before we can jump into the search pool. So that's important. Now, of course, we're not going to be in a position to know whether Reverend Vertus is a good match for us until we've completed the interim work, right? And as we just heard, the work is expected to begin next week, or actually this morning, right now, and continue through the summer. So with all of that in mind, the board has developed a plan that provides continuous ministerial leadership throughout the rest of our transition. It involves extending Reverend Vertus's contract with us for 2 additional years. This will allow us the time to complete our interim work later this year and enter the search process in the spring of 27, if that's what we decide we want to do. It provides mid-range security for the congregation and critical stability during our transition. Now, at this point, I'd like to go through a detailed timeline of those 2 years, what it's going to look like. We tried to create a slide, but the size of the screen and the size of the font and the viewing distance is just not conducive to you being able to read it. So we do have printouts that we're going to hand out later, and I will go through them once we hand them out, and you can take them home for reference and all that. But I just kind of wanted to verbally go over the 2-year timeline at this point. So, okay, as we said, the Dreaming Forward team is expected to launch their work immediately and continue through the summer, maybe into the early fall. Only at that point will we have a good sense of what the future of All Souls might look like and the attributes that we're looking for in a future settled minister. At that point, we would form what they call a call process task force. The role of the task force is to determine if there is support for calling Reverend Virtus or not. We would want the task force to be in place by the end of this year. So by the end of 2026, we would want to have that task force in place. Beginning right after the holidays, early 2027, the call process task force would lead small group meetings across a variety of demographics. We'd want to meet with the youth, we'd want to meet with the elders, we'd want to meet with parents, middle-aged, single people, everybody, right? We want to hit everybody up, gather the opinions to receive feedback as to whether there's good alignment with Reverend Virtus's ministerial leadership and the future that we envision for All Souls. The call process task force would complete their work in March of 2027. If there appeared to be adequate support, the task force would make a recommendation that a congregational vote take place. Now, according to our bylaws, a 90% affirmative vote is required to call a minister. If that threshold were met, we would then convert Reverend Virtus's contract, his current contract, to a settled minister contract going forward. If the call process task force determined that inadequate support existed to recommend a vote, or if the vote was taken and we didn't reach that 90% threshold, we would then enter the UUA settled minister search in the spring of 2027 in order to call another minister for 2028. Reverend Virtus would also then enter the search process to secure a call in another congregation for 2028. Our relationship would continue through that second year of the contract to allow the search process to play out for both parties. And this would provide critical stability for us as a congregation and for Reverend Virtus alike. So a couple more pieces of good information. There is precedence for ministerial relationships to continue after either party, either the minister or the congregation, has expressed an interest in discontinuing that relationship. Our own bylaws actually speak to that. They specify a minimum of 90 days in this case. Our current contract with Reverend Virtus has a 4-month requirement for that. So it's not a year, but it's months, right? Where you would be expected to just continue that relationship together. Also important to note is the UUA provides training for ministers to assist them in ensuring that every goodbye is a good goodbye at the end of their ministries, and that continued effective service happens regardless of the circumstances and the time frame. One of the things we've learned through this process, right, is that most ministries only last 7 or 8 years. We were blessed for 24, but most of them only last 7 or 8 years. So these ministers are in a perpetual state of leaving, right? So they're trained to do that well. Also, as I mentioned previously, this arrangement serves Reverend Virtus's best interests as well as our own, right? So it's in everybody's best interest to maintain this relationship. And of course, if for any reason it becomes uncomfortable for either party to continue our relationship, there are provisions in the contract to provide adequate notice of early termination. In that case, we would solicit another contract minister to finish out the term, or we would hire per diem preachers for Sunday worship and pastoral care needs. So I'm going to stop now and have Rebecca, if you would pass out the timelines there. And we can go through this. This is really a summary of what I just said. It's not really all the detail, but we can follow through. And then I'll be happy to take any questions at the end. Thank you to Rebecca for putting this timeline together, too. Liz, hi.
I know we're going to take questions later, but I just want to say that I think it's important to be explicit that this process...
Can you hang on just a sec? Jesse, can we get a mobile mic? Thank you. I just want to make sure the folks at home can hear. Yeah, we're online too. Yep. I know you love the mic. Oh.
Just that I think it's important to be explicit that this plan and arrangement also allows Reverend Vertus the opportunity to say, this isn't a good fit.
Yeah.
It's not just about us saying yes or no, but it's about him being able to say yes or
Absolutely.
no to us as well.
Yep.
And I think that was implied in what you said, but I
Yep.
think it's important to be explicit about that.
Thank you, thank you. Yep. Okay, does everybody have a copy? Yes, Cynthia.
I apologize.
Mike.
I apologize if I missed. I was still trying. I haven't been able to do this download. Reverend Vertus's current contract is for 1 year.
Yes, it expires in June 30th of this year, yep.
So you'll be voting to extend that 1-year contract.
Correct, yep.
Okay.
Part of the contract requires that we advise him by March 1st of whether or not we're going to renew. So the board is going to vote at our next meeting, which is Thursday night.
And this
On the
vote,
extension.
the part that I was a little foggy on is you are talking about extending the contract for 2 additional years after
Correct.
this year. So he would be
Correct.
and you'll be voting on a two-year
Correct.
extension?
Correct.
And then he will be our minister for 3 years.
Correct.
At which time we would vote
Yeah.
at a meeting,
Yep.
or a congregational
Congregation
meeting.
Yep.
In 2 more years, and then that would extend, if we wanted to search at that time, it would be another full year.
Let's run through the timeline on paper so you can see it, and then if you still have a remaining question, you'll be the first one we give the mic to. Okay.
If you did not get a copy of the timeline, I can print out some more. We're also going to put it in the e-blast for next week so you can see it there.
Can you say that through the mic so that people know?
Yeah.
I'm ready.
If you did not get a copy of the printout today, I can go print some more. And then we're also going to put it in the e-blast so you can see it there.
Does everybody in Unity Hall at least have access to look over somebody's shoulder and see it? Yeah? Okay. Again, we'll put links in the e-blast and post on the website and, okay. All right, so on the first page we start, the first block is February, that's today, right? Start of the interim work period. The Dreaming Forward team is introduced to the congregation and the scope of their work is outlined. Check, just did that, right? As we move into March through October is designated as the interim work period. This is where Sally and the Dreaming Forward team will do their identity work. Who are we? Who do we want to be? They expect to wrap that up late summer, early fall. At that point, we would put together a contract to call team. So that period of time would be October to November. We want to make sure we have the team in place. It's kind of like what we did with the Dreaming Forward team this year. We solicited people for it in like October, November, knowing that they weren't going to do work until after the first of the year, but we wanted them in place by the end of the year so they could kind of coalesce and get their feet under them so that right after the holidays we could start, right? So we're mimicking that process here. So that we'll have that contract to call team in place by the end of this year. Now we flip to the back of that page. And then again, right after the holidays, beginning in January, February, March, the contract to call team would lead these small group meetings. The focus this time would be on Reverend Vertus, right? We're deliberately not talking about Reverend Vertus during the Dreaming Forward stuff. That is introspective, congregation focused, right? But when we're done that work, we have an idea of, okay, what kind of attributes are we looking for in our future minister, right? And we want to then go around and solicit feedback from folks as to whether or not we think that there is enough support to hold a vote to call, all right? So that wraps up March. If it's determined that there is enough support to hold a vote to call, we would hold that vote to call in April of next year, April of 2027. If we reach that 90% affirmative vote to call Reverend Vertus, we would make that call in May, and then we would convert that contract, the contract that we're about to renew, we would convert that contract to a called minister contract. And called minister contracts, they're settled ministers, they're open-ended. There is no duration associated with that. If the contract to call team determined that there was not enough support to even hold a vote, or if the vote did not result in a 90% affirmative, then we would drop down to that bottom part of page 2, where we then form a ministerial search team. Okay, so we would form the ministerial search team next spring, so spring of '27, and then they would go through the standard ministerial search process, and I'll lay that out for you right now. We would form the team in April and May. We would approve them at the annual meeting as our search team. They would then go through the summer. The UUA puts on a retreat for all congregations going through search. They do that in June. There's some opportunity to meet with UUA leadership, both nationally and regionally, during the summer, early fall. And then really that's where the rubber meets the road. From September to December, the ministerial search team would put together the congregational profile. They would continue to solicit information from what we're looking for in a future minister. They would draft a draft contract and have that ready to go in December, because December is where we would post the job, basically, to the UUA jobs board, right, for lack of a better word. Okay, now flipping to page 3, this is where the search team would wrap up their work. This is now 2028. We're in January of 2028. We have posted our position. Ministers are now posting their, responding, and we're starting to have conversations with potential candidates. February and March are the candidating weekends where they come out and they preach and they meet with the leadership of the congregation. And then in April, a selection would be made. And at that point, again, we would hold the congregational vote. This is all driven by democratic process. We would hold a congregational vote at that time. Same 90% affirmative vote would be required. And provided we hit that 90% threshold at that point, we would call the new minister in April of 2028 for a July start. I know that's a lot of information, but hopefully having the timeline to go back through. Okay, Cynthia.
I'll talk loud.
No, we're on line, so we want to make sure everybody
Well,
can hear.
I want to just briefly go back to the initial phase, because I didn't get quite a chance to ask this question.
Sure.
As we are envisioning who we are, will there be any differentiation between members and non-members? And also that everyone that is a non-member should know, I believe they have to be a member for 12 months before they could vote.
I don't think it's 12. I feel like it's.
Okay, well, that would be something
I feel
we
like
should.
it's 60 days. I was going to say, I thought it was 2 or 3 months. Yep.
Oh, well, that's good.
We'll make that clear at the time.
So,
Sure.
but that's one phase as we're envisioning who we are, is I would assume we would include everyone, and will we even ask people if you're a member or not a member? And then the second thing is major. This is a much more extended timeline than I was imagining. As a longtime UU person, I've never been in a contract ministry situation.
Sure.
Let's assume, just for the sake of knowing what an alternative would be, a year from now, maybe in general, we think probably in another year, we're not going to be at a 90%. We're not feeling whatever, that might, we're strongly not feeling that that this might not be our call. Is there any alternative, or would we simply maybe be, an alternative might be that we would be self-led with many visiting ministers in the pulpit in severing our relationship in another year, starting a search, but then being lay-led, which I think is a wonderful opportunity for this congregation as well. So just what are the alternatives to this long timeline?
Yeah, so I mean, our contract with Reverend Vertus currently, and I expect our renewed contract with Reverend Vertus, would have the same certainly early exit clause that we have now, which requires 4 months' notice for either party. If Reverend Vertus was presented with an opportunity and he wanted to get out of the contract early, he has to provide 4 months' notice. If we for whatever reason, wanted to sever that relationship, we would provide 4 months' notice. That would stay. Yep. I think Catherine had her hand up next.
Eileen, you have the congregation votes in April. There's potential site visits and interviews. What is the congregation's role in all of those things? I have this recollection of,
Where are you, Catherine? What page?
I'm on 2008, 28.
2028, yep.
I remember at one point you said, not today, this is way back, that the potential candidates would come, and we wouldn't know that they were potential candidates in the previous process. Does that hold? Am I making sense that they would come and preach and?
Yeah, they call that candidating weekends.
Yes,
And
yeah.
they would come and they would preach.
So when we go to
That would be
vote-
the spring of 2028 if we got
So
to
when we
that.
go to vote as congregation members, what engagement do we have with those who are looking at potentially serving here?
Those candidating weekends.
Right.
Right.
The interviews or the...
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, the ministerial search team has much more involvement. They're interviewing, they're reviewing sermons, they're, a lot more of engagement the team does. But then they determine the candidates that will come.
So if I'm going to vote and you need 90% of the vote,
Yep.
what am I going to base my vote on? That's
You
really kind of...
you will have seen these candidates. They will
Okay.
have come. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
But just seeing them preach,
And the recommendation of the,
that's what I'm asking, yeah.
right, and the recommendation of the ministerial search team and the leadership of the congregation. Yep. All right, I think Tina probably had her hand up next. Oh.
I'm sorry, unless the UUA has changed its process, Catherine, the potential candidates are never seen by us. We don't see them come speak. We don't meet them. We don't see anything about them. That's all handled by the search committee. They review all of the candidates, and then based on what they have seen, heard, learned, they choose the candidate, if they can. I mean, we had the experience where they couldn't. And so if they can identify the candidate, that candidate comes and spends 10 days or so here. They preach 2 Sundays. There's a multitude of opportunities for visits, conversations with all the different sectors of this congregation, kids, adults, committees, leadership, everything. And then on that second Sunday, a vote is held, and you vote up or down on that one candidate. So the search committee does all of the winnowing,
Right.
the work of that. And we give our faith to them
Sure.
to represent us and to be able to identify the candidate that they believe will be the best and the right fit.
Right. Thank you for that clarification, Liz. Appreciate it. Yep. Tina then, I think.
So I'm just wondering if we go to a vote and we don't have 90% quorum, what do we do?
At which point? Next spring after the call to,
Next spring?
Okay.
And any other time the congregation has to vote. How do we decide that what our quorum is, number one, if it's 90% of the membership, right? People who are currently members. And if that is not met, what do we do?
yeah. So, I mean, we're getting really ahead of ourselves. That's 2 years down the line. But no, it's fine. We would drop back and we come up with Plan B, like we always do, right? We would probably go out to another contract ministry to get our legs under us and jump back into the next cycle of the search, which would be the following spring, right? Casey and then Karen.
I'm going to be blackballed for this, and no intent is meant personally. I'm just wondering how it became, who decided for an additional 2-year contract?
So,
I mean, I know that you're showing us a whole,
Yeah,
a lot of work
yeah,
to do,
so, yeah,
but I feel like that should have been a bigger vote.
So this, The board discussed various scenarios. This isn't a matter for congregational vote. This is something that falls within the purview of a board vote. Obviously, when we're calling a long-term minister, that's a subject of a congregational vote for sure. But we ran through different scenarios, and they're really, when you consider the length of the search calendar, 16 months you need. There's no time. We can't finish our interim work in time to get into the search cycle for this year. We need to be doing that next month, right? There just isn't enough time to do that. And, you know, as far as what people expected or the overall time, if the traditional interim process, we always said, the traditional interim process is at least 2 years. Typically 2 years, sometimes longer, not infrequently longer, right? The minute we didn't match with the interim process, with the standard interim process, we knew we were in an open-ended situation. We welcomed that for the opportunity that it presented, right? And not being nailed down to have to release whoever we got after 2 years, right? So I think that the language we've been using since last May was, you know, at least 2 years, maybe longer. We'll see how it organically falls out. At this point, we're feeling like we kind of want to wrap things up. We don't want it to go on for 3 or 4 or 5 years, right? So, and we feel like by next spring we'll be in a position to know whether there's support to call Reverend Vertus, and if not, then we all have the opportunity to jump into the search cycle for 2028. Karen, I think Karen was next.
So I can't believe I'm the one that took the bylaws out, but I did take the bylaws out because I think it is important to have accurate information in the meeting. So this is about who votes on calling a minister, and I'm just going to read the whole thing. It's so in order to vote at the congregational meeting, a general congregational meeting, a person shall have been a member at least 60 days. However, in the case of calling a minister, dismissing a minister, or dissolution, it's really tiny, dissolution of the legal society, membership for at least 12 months is required. I just want to... It's just important to know that, right? Because I don't want people to be... Certainly,
I mean, again, it's 2 years out. When we got to that point, we're going to be totally clear everybody understands who can vote and who can't and what the rules are, right? Yeah. So everybody join now, if you haven't. Judy?
Hi, I just wanted to thank everybody who is putting in all this hard work, and also my personal opinion is 2 years is not unreasonable to get to know somebody either. You know, we were used to one style of leadership for 24 years, and you can't, I personally couldn't make a vote in a few months, so I think that makes sense for me anyway.
Thanks, Judy. Anybody else? Sally. Charlie's getting his steps in today.
Thanks. I just wanted to add that, so Eileen mentioned I went up to the Salem Unitarian Universalist Church a couple weeks ago. Super interesting, very different place, founded in 1629, very different vibe. But their minister retired after 20-some years. And then they had an interim for a year, and then very quickly, I don't know all the details, had a settled minister for about 3 years. So they were in an interim phase for about a year, which in their telling, their leadership telling, was way too short. It was way too soon. They weren't ready. Then they had another transitional minister, because that settled minister, it didn't work. It didn't work. I don't know all the details of why it didn't. So they had a transitional minister then for 2 years, and now, this is 6 years later, they have a minister with a 3-year contract, which can potentially convert to a settled ministry at the end of that 3 years. One of the most interesting things from that conversation with both lay leadership and Danielle, the minister who's there, she's only been there for about 6 months. We went out to lunch after the service, was that, they were describing what I just said to you. And then one of the lay leaders said, oh, we would be very happy to just have Danielle be our settled minister now. She's been there 6 months. And Danielle, with no, just said, no, that's just not, I wouldn't even entertain it. I wouldn't even entertain it until the end of 3 years. So I don't know. I just wanted to share a little bit more of that. It was there, and this congregation I think is going to be really helpful to us too, as we make our way, because they're kind of 6 years down the road, 6 years in our future. So anyway, just wanted to share that.
Thanks. Yeah, I appreciate that, Sally. Excellent. Yeah. Our mantra all along through this has been slow and steady, right? We're not in a rush. This is really important work. It's important to do it well, not necessarily fast, right?
Hi, I just wanted to give a big gratitude to Unitarian Universal. I've had a long, hard road, and these people here have been dedicated so much to bringing me to church, where I was like bedridden and, relying on thinking I was going into the grave, And Kathy Spindler, amongst other people, Joyce and Paul, brought me here. The religious studies at Groton Regency are a little confusing because they have ministries run by Liz in vocational rehabilitation, and they have ministers that come up on the screen, and they're very helpful, but it's more Catholic. And there's a man on television also in the morning early who speaks of Jesus and God, and he's very strict, but he's very worthwhile to listen to. And there was another guy who spoke of the God, and when he is in your heart and you have a little bit of love to share, it's contagious and it goes around, But I think it's more important to find someone who's more regular. I think what we have now is a blessing.
Yeah.
So that's all I like to say.
We're really glad you're here, Anna. Thank you.
I promise. I am just slowly absorbing this.
Sure, it's a lot. I get that. Yep.
So just to clarify, next year we vote. This is sooner than I was thinking.
Yeah.
We vote.
Sure, a year from now, basically.
Okay, we vote. Okay, that's great. So say the vote is not 90%, but we've extended. He has another year contract, which is mutual. Yep. So we would just assume, even if the vote is not to call the Reverend Bruce, that he would continue to serve for us.
Correct.
He would be our minister for another
He'd be another contract,
year.
right.
He would be looking, or he might find something and he might sever, and then in which case we would be lay-led. We could do it.
Right.
We could manage.
We feel like that's really important, to have that security, to have a plan in place. Everybody can just relax. We know what the future brings, at least for the next 2 years, right? We feel like that security and stability is really important. Yep. Anything? Oh, Bev? Yep.
I'm a relatively new member here, only been here for a little more than a year. When we moved here, I had left a church that had lost a minister of 25 years and went through, we did not have an interim. We decided, quite foolishly, that we could do this on our own. And someone was hired that looked great on paper. She was a great preacher. For her benefit, COVID hit not long after she was hired. We found out very quickly she was not a good fit. And it didn't tear the congregation apart. It was a strong congregation, as I believe this one is as well. But I think we all need to know that we really do need to take the time and not rush into anything, because hiring someone that isn't a good fit for your congregation can be very, very distressing.
Thank you, Bev. Anybody else? Maria?
Hi, everyone. I signed the book in 2003, and one of the things that really attracted me to All Souls was that we had a very professional minister. And no matter who we hire, I strongly believe that it is too big a job to leave to lay people forever. Maybe a little tiny bit of time if we absolutely need to, but I absolutely prefer that we hire somebody who's very professional because the work is so big. I mean, just for a town hall meeting, there's a lot of us here. And there's so many people that the minister really needs to minister to. I don't think that most of us have all that time on our hands. So I'm looking forward to this process.
Thanks, Maria. Catherine? Thank you, Charlie.
I just have one last comment as someone who's joined here a little over a year ago. I am beyond impressed and grateful of the thoughtful, considerate, deliberate process and the dedication of all of you who are leading this or putting into this to make this happen. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Just real quick, I'll second what Maria said. I have been with All Souls since I was 9. I've been through all the iterations, and lay-led is really tough. And it's nice to hear from our members on occasions, you know, but it's really tough. And there's a lot of the background stuff that we don't see, that we appreciate having a full minister who knows what the heck they're doing.
All right, I'm going to hang around afterwards. If anybody has any questions that they, just think of or want to ask one-on-one, by all means, come on up. But thank you for your attention and participation. Thank you, Rebecca.